recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios, Meanjin, Brisbane.
On 102.1 FM.
And broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network.
You're listening to Zed Games.
Zed Games brings you the best in gaming news, reviews, community and culture. Want to reach out?
Share your hot take?
Or do you just want to share your favourite game?
Find us on socials at Zed Games AU.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Zed Games. My name is Hazel and I'll be your host for tonight. We've got a jam-packed show where we're going to be talking all about modifying consoles and all sorts of DIY topics around video game consoles. But before we get into that, we're going to be getting into a special news dispatch all the way from Tokyo from a former host of Zed Games named Adrian. He has attended the Tokyo Game Show 2025 and brought us a retrospective with a few little interviews from around the show floor. Let's check that out.
Tokyo Game Show still has its own identity. Like, having been to Gamescom, having been to E3, having been to PAX Oz, having been to a lot of these different events across the world, each has its own identity.
And don't make the same mistake I made. All this ceremony of giving cards in Japan, I'm really ashamed of it.
Definitely anticipate a lot of back and forth. People won't often praise good localization, but they will absolutely can bad localization.
Konnichiwa, Mini-san.
Minasan, konnichiwa. Xbox no Phil Desu.
In Tokyo to present the latest in gaming.
That's right, Tokyo Game Show has come and gone for yet another year. It usually brings us a fair share of headlines and gaming execs having a crack at Japanese. But one thing you might not think of when you think of Tokyo Game Show is indie gaming. It's only gotten bigger and better each year, and I wanted to find out what it takes to bring a game to an international convention like TGS. Plus, the effort that goes into translating a game from English into other languages like Japanese, and also how Tokyo Game Show has evolved over the years and where it's going in the future. First up, some insights for indie devs thinking of showcasing their games abroad.
My name is Łukasz Kostka, I'm from Polish Games. I serve there as a boring guy, so the marketing guy. Today on Tokyo Game Show, we are presenting the game that is called Be My Horde, which is a roguelite survivor, and the twist is that you do not fight, because your minions do the fight for you. Our game director played Diablo 4 as a necromancer, and he didn't like it, so he was like, I would do it better, and that's how Be My Horde came to be. We were on various events already, PAX East, PAX West, Gamescom 2, and even if Gamescom is one of the biggest ones, I believe that Tokyo Game Show is even bigger one. We have some difficulties, language barrier first of all, but we kind of speak with this universal language of gaming. All I need to do is show my game, and even if the person doesn't speak English and I don't speak Japanese, we kind of understand for the game. But just be prepared, because I see that most of the developers, most indie developers go and improvise. Sometimes it's good, but not exactly. You need to prepare, you need to think about it. How much merge do you want to take with you? What should the key art of your game, like the print on the wall, look like? And don't make the same mistake I made. I didn't take my company cards with me. With all this ceremony of giving cards in Japan, I'm really ashamed of it.
Next, we wanted to find out what goes into translating a game for other markets.
So my name is Kerrick Lomas. I work as both a localizer from Japanese into English. I currently also work for an indie game developer named Dangan Entertainment, which are based in Osaka. We try to help developers from all over the world get their game all over the world. Getting your game translated into Japanese can be quite pricey, and sometimes it's difficult to know, is my game really going to matter in Japanese? Am I going to make enough money back to actually warrant getting it translated into Japanese? The more effort, the more legwork you put into the actual localization process, as in providing a localization kit, which gives all of the information, like who are the characters, what are their names, what is the hierarchy, who's in charge of who's older than who's a he, who's a she, who's a they, them. That makes for a better translation in general, and we'll often bring down the price because it just makes the whole situation a bit faster. You'll get questions from the translators, like, who is this, what are they for, what is happening here, I need context. Definitely anticipate a lot of back and forth. People won't often praise good localization, but they will absolutely bad localization. Like, they will spot that from a mile away. Yeah. And you do see, again, with Silksong, they got into some heat because of the Chinese localization on that front. When the localization is bad, I mean, Hades, the first one, they got in a lot of trouble for that because the Spanish localization for that, they crowdfunded it. So the Spanish localization of Hades ended up getting panned pretty badly, and they had to go back and do the whole thing again. If you played Hades 1, you know how much text there is in that.
A lot of text.
You'll know if your translation failed because people will tell you your translation has failed. It's always in our best interest just to kind of help the indie scene. I genuinely think, like, I'm standing in the Indie Hall, which is next to the business, business solution corner. And
very creatively named.
Yep, right in front of the PayPal booth. And like all of the indies have been pushed up to the second floor of the actual indie booth that used to be. We got the indie game corner now, and it's just like video games are losing a lot of the soul that indie is bringing into them. And this is just me on my soapbox more than anything now, but like, please, like, indies are the future. Indie is where the heart of video games are, and support your indies. Like, it's all well and good playing AAAs, but definitely keep an eye out, and you'll find like a gem that speaks to you, like we used to have before now.
And then there's how Tokyo Game Show has evolved over the years.
So my name is Jason O'Callaghan. I am the executive producer of New Game Plus, and I'm also a company director for Events Engine, which is an events company out of Australia. Tokyo Game Show still has its own identity. Like, having been to Gamescom, having been to E3, having been to PAX Oz, having been to a lot of these different events across the world, each has its own identity. You know, the amount of people taking photos of straight up old-fashioned booth babes, and this is, you know, you want to have that wider conversation about Japanese culture, sure, but at the same time, you know, we're recording this at the Indian International Night. They understand the value in reaching out to the wider community. And I think that's something that they've definitely gotten better with. Years previous, it was all very made for the domestic market. But I think as time's gone on, especially with gaming, they've come to understand that a lot of the value for the Japanese industry comes from externally. There's a few other Australian indies, and honestly, I've met so many random indie devs here, and random Australians who work in the industry who happen to be in Japan. They've extended the Indie Pavilion this year. Like, the Indie Pavilion this year is much bigger than it has been previously. They're recognising all the different places. Obviously, there's the US, there's the UK, there's Europe. Like, people from different places that you wouldn't necessarily associate with both indie games and game development in general. And I think that's probably the one thing that TGS has been wise to is it's nice to have Capcom here, it's nice to have Sega here, obviously they're homegrown success stories, but to have these indie devs come and show their games and bring the kind of that cultural exchange offers something unique to Tokyo Game Show. And I think that's something that they've appreciated more and more as time's gone on.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, Jason.
No worries, mate. Good to speak to you.
Thank you to Adrian, our, I guess, unofficial foreign correspondent. That was awesome. We'd love to have more stuff like that. But like I said, we've got a jam-packed show tonight. This is Zed Games. My name is Hazel. And just a little shout-out. Thank you to Claire for texting in, Zed Games, Zed Games, Zed Games. All right. Now we're going to get into a pre-recorded segment here, a discussion between myself, my co-host Natalia, and a guest, also named Hazel, from the show Tranzmission on 4ZZZ on Tuesday mornings. Now, we're talking all about modifying video game consoles, so let's get into it. You're listening to Zed Games. My name's Hazel. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm here in the studio with...
Hazel, and my pronouns are also she and her.
And...
Not Hazel, Natalia. And my pronouns are she and her.
We're here to talk about console modding. Video game consoles have gotten a lot more locked down over the years because console manufacturers have gotten wise to the fact that we like to mess with their stuff after they sell it to us.
Yeah.
We like to add weird features to it. We like to make it look different. And they don't like that for a lot of reasons. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons why, but let's just say it's all the normal company reasons for doing bad stuff that we don't like.
Yeah.
I picked out a couple of stories from news from the last few years that I think really highlight this hostility from the console manufacturers towards anybody who might try and modify their consoles to change the function of them or to even just change the appearance of them. The first one that I want to look at is the case of Gary Bowser.
What did he do? What did he do? Did he steal away Princess Peach?
Doug Bowser strikes again.
It's not Doug Bowser though, that's the CEO.
So Gary Bowser was the head of a console modding group called Team Executor. Executor. Not sure how you're actually supposed to say it out loud. It's spelt very strangely. When the Nintendo Switch came out, they made some tools for jailbreaking it, and they got in a lot of trouble with Nintendo. You know, I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but it ended with poor old Gary Bowser in prison for 3 years, and after he got out, he owed so much money to Nintendo and still owes so many millions of US dollars to Nintendo that he will likely never pay it off, and they will be garnishing his wages for the rest of his life.
Are you sure? This is the same company that also Break Your Switch 2s who figured out that you like modify it. This seems very uncharacteristic for Nintendo's lawyers, actually. I don't think they would do
Nintendo's
that.
always been super friendly with people, you know, using the copyrighted content for, you know, transformative media and everything.
If you want to hear more about Nintendo's practices around games preservation or modification of their IP, listen to the news of any episode of Zed Games. We kind of touched on Nintendo bricking people's consoles, making them unusable because they have done some kind of modification to them at some point. This isn't just Nintendo. This is the same with Xbox, this is the same with PlayStation, and it has been the case for well over a decade that if you make any kind of physical changes to your console, the manufacturer is very, very, very likely to detect that if you use any kind of online services and permanently ban your console from those online services.
Yeah, and within their rights as well.
Within their legal rights.
Yeah.
Absolutely they are. The second case that I wanted to talk about in terms of manufacturer backlash to these sorts of console modifications is actually, it's not functional, it's purely aesthetic. So there's a company called dbrand that makes lots of aesthetic skins, vinyl stickers, and that sort of thing for you to modify your electronics and lots of other things. One product that they came out with at the launch of the PlayStation 5 was called dark plates. These were replacements for the side plates on the PlayStation 5. They were in a darker color and they were exactly the same shape as the PlayStation 5 original plates. This led to legal proceedings with Sony, who decided that actually that shape, you're not allowed to make that shape. We own that shape. And they were able to force dbrand to completely take the dark plates product off the market. Now, dbrand are very used to this kind of thing, and so they came back with dark plates 2.0, which were just a slightly different shape.
Right.
And those are still available to this day.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's the really key part of this for me, is that this is a change that does not do anything to the function of your console. It does not change the function of the product that you bought from Sony. And this was not a product you could buy an equivalent of from Sony.
I think that's a really egregious example as well, because clearly these faceplates, they were designed to be removable and to be customizable. However, it was meant to be customizable in a way that is Sony approved, with a little check mark on the side, cha-ching.
Yeah.
And because that way they can keep control of like the closed ecosystem of how you can design it.
Where the line is drawn in a place that doesn't make logical, practical sense in reality.
I think the thesis of what we're trying to say here is, why do companies get to tell you what you can do with the product that you bought from them after you bought it and took it home? You might have owned it for years, and they can still tell you what you're allowed to do with it? How is that fair? Let's break the rules. Let's go void the warranty. That was the first part of a recorded conversation about modifying consoles with myself, Hazel from Zed Games, our guest, also named Hazel from the show Tranzmission, and my co-host Natalia.
Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Mianjin, Brisbane and beyond.
Transmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music and events.
Every Tuesday from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.
My name's Hazel, and we're going to jump into a conversation that I had pre-recorded with Hazel from Tranzmission and my co-host Natalia. This part is all about Hazel's experience modifying her own PlayStation Portable, or PSP. So, Hazel, I wanted to ask you, what was it like modifying your PSP?
I would say it was actually a shockingly simple process. There's difficulties, and you do need to be patient, because ultimately that's the thing that's going to screw you over the most with any kind of modding. As soon as you try and do something too quickly or take a shortcut, you don't read up or think hard enough about something, that's when you're going to make a mistake with these. I have long been a huge fan of the PSP. UMDs are a kind of niche, just a very proprietary type of physical media. That said, I adore these things. I think they are so cute. I love physical media. So for anyone who's not aware of a UMD, it's basically a little disc, like a CD, that goes in the back of your PSP. However, it's held in a sort of strange plastic housing that's sort of got a circular shape with kind of oblonged corners on one top. So this allows it to be protected. They're actually phenomenal. I've never seen in my life, a PSP game that's too scratched to play. These things are actually really good at protecting the disc. I love optical media. I just think maybe I'll do some ASMR for you guys.
Yes, please.
So this is the back of the PSP case opening. A spinning disc stops spinning. I'm going to put it in and then we're going to close it. Excellent.
Very nice.
Isn't it just fantastic? So, first of all, there's just the experience of it. It's so satisfying. It's so fun. So I kind of had, over the past couple of years, this nostalgia-filled renaissance for the PSP where I just dug up the old PSP that I had lying about and then just looked up what you could do to it. I went to YouTube, I went to Reddit, I looked at what people can do with them. Console Mods Wiki, for example, has not the deepest dive into every console, but it will have like the core things you could do to everything. You know, it's a great starting point. And then I just found out what was possible on the PSP. I saw that custom firmware is very, very easy to install. There's great videos very slowly showing you how to tear down each version of the PSP, and it's quite easy. You just need to be careful and slow, just one type of screwdriver, and the entire thing is accessible to you. And then I made some decisions to go over what this PSP's had done to it. Custom firmware. It's got a variety of homebrew games, movies, and other stuff loaded onto it. And one of the main things is that you can do a pretty nifty case replacement with it. So it's also got a clear pink case over the top of it with white buttons and a modified joystick so that it has the PS Vita sort of rounded, grippy top to it. It feels
Such
a lot nicer.
Gorgeous console.
Is it beautiful,
It looks
right?
lovely.
Another example is there's a trick for getting sound responsive LEDs on a PSP that are without soldering. So you just get these micro LEDs, and then fun fact, in the PSP 2000 and 3000 models, the speakers are not soldered. They are just clipped into place. So if you unclip them, you can wrap the wire from the LED around them, route it wherever you want inside the PSP, and then whenever the speaker receives power to send out sound, that power also goes into the LED. So you get sound responsive LEDs. I did that, although I did screw up. I somehow blew the speaker fuse. So now my PSP does not make any sound out of its speakers, but it does out of its headphone jack.
But if it could, it would look really cool.
It would look so cool.
So cool.
I literally drilled holes into the shoulder buttons and glued it into the shoulder buttons so the shoulder buttons would light up. I'm so bummed out that I can't see it.
Do you regret doing it?
Oh, absolutely not. I screwed up more than that when I did that mod, right? That's the problem that remains, is that I need to fix that fuse. What I also did was I managed to boot loop my PSP, which was very scary at first.
Oh.
It was kind of a nightmare, but I did get through it. And I think that kind of problem solving, like I made this mistake and then I just couldn't go to sleep because every 10 minutes I would just look up another solution and I just kept fiddling with it. And it's just too exciting. And I ended up, staying up another 2 or 3 hours, but I got it working at the end. And that's, I think, part of the fun, is those mistakes are themselves kind of part of the fun challenge.
I want you to take that to heart, listeners. I have never regretted trying to do this, even when I screwed up. Of course, I recommend that you look into it. You understand the risks of what you're doing. You understand what can go wrong, how it can go wrong, what you need to do to mitigate that. But really, I understood the risks of what I was doing. I messed up. I broke something. Oh well, that sucks. But I would just do it again if I had the chance. Because it's fun, because it's meaningful for me, because I want the rewards.
I'll also say the community guides for these things are very thorough. If you do enough digging, those communities have very well documented common points of failure. You can even see people talking about what goes wrong when you mod these and how to fix those issues too. So if you're willing to do your reading up as well, it is virtually foolproof.
I'll add that I've never bricked a console. And that's because I do my reading before I touch anything.
For sure. Can I go over some of the interesting homebrew things that I've found for my PSP?
Absolutely.
So because of this custom firmware, you can run things that are not just mandated Sony games, which means people will make games for them. This is called homebrew. Many of you will already be familiar with homebrew games. So I've got the original Celeste on there, the Celeste that came from a game jam prior to being actually put together into a Steam game.
I have that on my Playdate as well, a port of it.
It is just so snappy. Like, even the original version of it without all of the flair, it's so responsive, it's so fun, it's so good, and it's got a lot of heart in it. But there's also weirder things. For example, are you both familiar with PT?
Yes.
Yes. The horror playable teaser that was released.
That could have been. What could have been. Like, we only got to see a little tiny glimpse of it.
I know, so well made. Made with Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, and it was sort of released guerrilla style without the permission of Sony and then taken down. It's, for some reason, has ported that to the PSP.
That is so cool.
Yep, and then there's also sort of strange unconventional applications. I've got an e-reader on my PSP, and it makes for a really good Kindle substitute. It's actually quite functional. We also have Minecraft being ported to it. Half-Life has been ported to it. There's a port of Halo done through the Doom engine on the PSP. What? So someone has ported like a weird, bizarre version of Halo, and it's very not playable. But it's fun they did it.
It is fun that they did it.
I love that.
That was the second part of a conversation that I pre-recorded with myself, Hazel from Zed Games, the other Hazel from Tranzmission, and my co-host Natalia, all about modifying video game consoles. And this time we're going to be getting into a bit of my own personal experiences with jailbreaking consoles in the past. I want to talk about my experiences with jailbreaking consoles. Yes. So I am somebody who never learned to solder. I know how to take things apart, obviously. I have screwdrivers, I have little pry tools and all that. But what I don't have is a soldering iron or any skills at using one.
You know how to modify below 60 degrees Celsius.
I do. The personal perspective that I bring to console modding is that of being broke. Extremely broke for so many years. While I was broke, I had access to hand-me-down old retro consoles. Mm-hmm. People are probably going to take issue with me saying retro because I'm talking about things like the original Nintendo Wii, the PlayStation Portable or PSP, the PlayStation 3 and 2, and the original Xbox. These days, they count for retro. I did have access to a lot of these hand-me-down consoles. I'm by far the youngest person in my family, and I just wound up with a lot of stuff. And I also had access to the internet and a laptop and USB drives. And it turns out that you can do a lot with old consoles, a laptop, and some USB drives. Mm-hmm. You can do things like take a PlayStation 3 and run Linux on it if you want to.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't delve into that side of it. What I did delve into was installing custom firmware on a PlayStation 3 with nothing but a laptop and a USB drive. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I won't say that everybody out there listening can jump straight into one of these guides on how to do it. I recommend starting with an easier target, something like a PSP or a Wii. Those are incredibly easy to jailbreak and exploit and install custom firmware and homebrew apps and all that goodness.
So easy.
And I've even failed on doing things like this before. I tried to jailbreak a PS2, my sister's PS2. We wanted to try and play some region-locked games on it that she had bought off eBay. And I found a guide on how to do it. One of the ways that you could do it at the time was to get specific games that had exploits in them that would allow you to basically run the game, do something specific in the game, and then pop open the disk drive and swap in another disk with whatever you want on it.
A backup of the game, of course.
And one of the games that we could do this with was one of the James Bond games. So I went out to a game store and I picked up a used copy. And I took it home and I followed the guide and I did exactly what the guide said, and it didn't work. And then I found out that I had the wrong version of the game. I had the Platinum Edition re-release that came out years later where the bug was patched.
Yeah.
And I'd wasted my money.
I had a similar failure occur the PlayStation 2. I have a PlayStation 2 Slim model that I gave a transparent case. Very fun, very simple process. Again, if you want to get into case swapping, the PlayStation 1 and 2 are Dead simple. So easy. It's like 7 screws. I found that there's an exploit you can do where you burn a backup of your favorite game onto a DVD. If it's been burnt correctly onto the DVD, it will just play because you convinced the PlayStation 2 that it's a DVD. So it'll start it like a DVD thinking it's a movie, and then it'll just get tricked and it'll be like, oh, this is a game. Okay, I'm playing a game now. And it'll just play the game.
Ignore all previous instructions.
Exactly.
You are playing a video game now.
But what I didn't realize, first of all, was how delicate burning DVDs can be. I also did not realize how delicate the PS2 laser is. And it turns out, if it's trying to read something it really shouldn't be reading, it has trouble, and it works really hard to try and read it. And that laser can totally bust itself doing that.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that I busted this laser. It's not completely dead. Plays CD games fine. I might have to do some soldering and replace a laser because I got too greedy trying to burn some DVDs.
So yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes when you do stuff like this, you are voiding the warranty, and sometimes you're going to make a mistake. And sometimes that mistake is going to cost you time and money and effort, and you're going to feel bad about it. It's going to suck. But it's part of the process. Like, you're going to make mistakes eventually. But for me, it was worth it to learn, it was worth it to try, and it was worth it to take this hardware and make it do what I tell it to do.
Amen. And for every one of those failures, you're going to have 3 things that go right. And you also have that learning process of fixing a failure. Oftentimes you can. And that in itself is its own satisfying journey if you're willing to put in the work for it. It's its own hobby. It's very satisfying.
That's a bit of my experience in modifying consoles without actually really getting into the nuts and bolts and pulling out a soldering iron and doing strange things to the electronics. Dedicated people out there on the internet are working very hard on ways for you to just plug a USB stick into your console and make it do whatever you want.
I do love physical media, but I think we would be remiss not to acknowledge the obvious flaws with physical media as well, right? A lot of physical media just degrades. CDs are not immune to that. Flash drives are not immune to that. There's also, plastic waste. It's not cheap to manufacture these things. Physical space. Not everyone has the space to store 200 DVD cases. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, digital media is just as good if you can own it. And so if you can download a copy of your game and play it, that's just as good.
We're not advocating piracy on here. I just want to be clear about that. If you have a DVD of a game and it is a classic game that you love to bits and your DVD gets scratched, that's it. You're never playing that again. But if you have a backup of that you took using a DVD drive and you've got a console that you've modified so it will take that backup file instead of the original DVD and it'll play it like it's the original game, you can keep playing that. You can preserve that game for generations to come.
There's an art preservation side to this as well, right? Because there are games that are cult classics that did not get wide releases. And preserving those games is important. There's also, stuff like VibRibbon, super cool game. You put in the disc, it starts running the game. It runs entirely in the RAM. So you take the disc out, you put in your own CD of music, and it's a rhythm game to that music. Amazing. Not emulatable, because of the way it functions. And if you want to buy a good old honest copy of the PAL version, you're going to be forking out $300 to $400 for it. That's why the preservation of these things matters, because there's just so few copies of it to even go around.
Part of why this is so important to me is that there are many games that cannot be emulated because there are things about the original console that we just can't replicate. So it's important that we can keep the consoles that play them alive, and the companies are not going to help us do that. We have to do it ourselves.
It's a shame that it's kind of like us versus companies in a way, but it's because we really like what they made. We want to keep using it.
Or we really love the art that was published on those consoles.
Yeah.
Natalia, you mentioned to me that your Xbox has stopped working.
Yes, it has. I tried to turn on my Xbox and it just straight up stopped working. And it was so frustrating because we live in an era where we interface with technology and computers more than ever before. And yet I feel like our tech literacy, I guess, is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
And for me, my Xbox stopped working. I do not feel comfortable to dig into its guts. They make it really difficult to do so on purpose. They obfuscate the process of doing so. What if they find out and they they break my Xbox just in general anyway? A bit frustrating, and I would just have a big paperweight.
That is really disappointing, and it is 50-50, I think. I think it's absolutely true that they make it hard, deliberately, intentionally. Apple's a great example of that being done so egregiously they lost lawsuits over it. Also interesting that like the tech is just more esoteric as well, right? If you take apart a GameCube or whatever, anything like, you know, like pre-2010, there's a clarity. There's big chunks, they're routed really simply, it's usually one big flat board and that's all that's going on. But yeah, when you get into these sort of modern day consoles, if you open that thing up, it is just bizarre in there. You do need so much extra knowledge, so much extra hands-on skill, and so much more risk to take to be willing to break it, you know?
In the case that my Xbox breaks, and let's say I'm paying $30 for an Xbox, $30 for an Xbox subscription to Game Pass, and I don't own any other physical games and I don't have any other way of playing them, well, I guess I better go buy another Xbox. But it doesn't have to be this way. When I went down to Melbourne, I visited ACPI, which is the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, and they do a lot of really interesting and important preservation work in the film scene, in the film world, but also in the games world. I think they would talk, I remember seeing an exhibit about basically trying to preserve a bunch of like really old like Commodore 64 and like esoteric consoles that existed briefly, and trying to catalog these Australian made games that, because of the unique architecture of those kind of computers, you can't replicate it, and being able to preserve those games takes a lot of time and money and effort, but I think it is worth the effort because, like you're saying, it is art. And it's cool. Something I actually think is beautiful about it, which you were kind of alluding to, was that this isn't a thing that you can or should do by yourself. This is something that a massive community of people around the world who all care about video games have collectively contributed to that. I think that is a really cool aspect of it, the fact that it's just, a bunch of people who care.
You're listening to Zed Games at 4ZZZ.
You're listening to Zed Games on 4ZZZ.
Oi mate, you're listening to Zed Games at 4ZZZ.
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 Got a bit carried away.
Welcome back to Zed Games. My name is Hazel, and we are now going to be listening to an interview between myself and my older brother Alec, all about the original Xbox console that we had when I was a child that he had modified with some custom hardware.
You're listening to Zed Games. My name is Hazel, and I'm here with my older brother.
Hi. Yes, you are. My name is Alec. Thank you for having me.
We're here to talk about something from, I guess, both of our childhoods, but more mine since you're a lot older than me. In about 2002, on Christmas Day, I opened some presents under the tree, and one of them was an original Xbox console. But this wasn't just any original Xbox console. There was something a little special about it, and that was thanks to you.
That's right. I was already a bit of a gaming fan, a bit of a tech nerd, and the Xbox, when it first came out, had really caught my attention for the fact that it was just a computer. So I thought, well, I want a new console. I want the whole family to have a new console. Why not make it a special one?
Because I was just a little kid at this point, I didn't really understand all the work that went into making it special, like you said. So maybe you can walk me through, like, what was it like? What did you do to it for a start?
Well, the Xbox that you'd remember looked and played just like a normal Xbox until you flipped a little switch on the back.
So I remember every time I started it up, it would load up into this like crazy futuristic blue menu. It had like all these different stats. It looked totally different to a regular Xbox. And I could even load up games without putting the disc in. How did that work?
Yeah, so one of the cool aspects of the Xbox just being a computer was that it just had a normal hard drive and you could upgrade it. And so I did. One of the changes was going from, I think it might have been a 20 gigabyte drive, smaller than your normal SD card these days, up to 120 gigabyte drive, which, let's be honest, is probably still smaller than most SD cards. But the average game on a DVD was around 4 gigabytes. So what this allowed people to do was make backups of their disk media and play them from the hard drive itself. And this was so much faster. If you've ever had to load a computer game from an old DVD drive, you know that there's been a lot of advancements over time. And this was not your modern PS5. So loading from the hard drive had some real performance benefits.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it felt like I had this crazy thing that like came from the future. Well, like anytime I played on a friend's Xbox, it was just regular. They had to put the disc in if they wanted to play a game. They had to wait for it to load. It was like spinning up. If your disc got scratched, then like that was just it, but not for us.
Well, yeah, like you say, it was a big age difference between us. And I have to admit, you know, part of it was not wanting people handling my precious DVDs. They really would scratch pretty easily. And once that was done, you were off buying a new copy. There was no re-downloading.
I remember XBMC, like you talked about, that media player. We were always like watching movies and TV on there.
So this was long before the days of streaming media. But with a big enough hard drive, you could just put your own media on there and play it directly. I can remember back in the day going to LAN parties where people would have dedicated PCs set up just for watching videos. You know, you'd have people who had copied their entire DVD collections onto hard drives and were able to just play them at any point.
But the Xbox, when you added this capability to it, it was like 2 for 1. You could play games and watch media all in the same box, all with the same controller. So I didn't get to see you do any of the work on this to make it happen. It was all a surprise for me. What was it like for you? Was it something you'd ever done before?
So the Xbox basically being a computer tied in really well with what I was already doing. I had already built some of my own computers, and I was even doing it for work at the time. So being able to pull apart a desktop computer really wasn't the concern. Where it got tricky was the soldering. There was some really tricky work involved in getting some of those really fine connectors onto the board.
Yeah, like Microsoft never intended for you to get in there and start soldering wires on yourself, so it's not like they designed it to be easy.
That's right, but it's not like they were trying to stop people either. It was a very well laid out computer. It had everything more or less what you'd expect it to be, and it wasn't nearly as cramped as some of the other consoles that I'd worked on.
Did you already know how to solder?
Oh, okay, no, I've got it. I could solder, but soldering is a real spectrum. You can solder copper pipes together in the plumbing for your house, or you can solder together tiny little wires between chips on a circuit board. And while I had done some of the stuff in between, this was definitely some of the smaller and finer work that I'd ever done. And my tools and my skills were challenged, but I got it done.
Do you remember anything going wrong and having to sort of backtrack and fix your work during it?
Overall, the instructions were great, and I managed to get through some of the most dangerous parts without falling in any big traps. But there was a lot of trial and error, and that little switch I mentioned, well, that ended up being stuck on with hot glue.
Do you feel like everything went pretty much according to plan because you really took the time to read through those instructions, you were patient with it, and you didn't rush into anything?
The thing that helped the most was being able to lean on the community. There were... This was before the days of social media, but there were some really cool forums that had some extremely good guides on just getting it done. And these days, I'm sure YouTube would be 1,000,000 times better.
So after it was all done, what was the most rewarding part for you?
We were 3 siblings. We'd had a PlayStation 1 when we were younger, and that had been broken for a while. And so the most rewarding part was just being able to sit down as a family and play games again. In terms of the modifications, it was really cool that we didn't need to like swap discs and we could have games load so much faster. It was great to be able to watch movies together without having to switch to another device, swap around cables and all of that fun stuff.
I bet it was so much fun headshotting your 5-year-old sister in Halo.
I'm sure there's some people who would feel that way, but I found it much more rewarding to crush you with Spawn in Soul Calibur 2.
So I bet there's a lot of people listening at home who've never done anything like this before, but, you know, maybe they're eyeing some old console in the garage and they just want to give it a go, but they don't know where to start. What kind of advice would you give them?
The first step is going to be to do your homework and set a budget. Some of this stuff can get really expensive. If you just want to try and modify something off of Gumtree, then you can really get your hands dirty quick.
Do you think people should leave a little bit of wiggle room in their budget in case something goes wrong?
Absolutely. Part of any project is knowing the risks. And if you're working on something that's particularly expensive, then maybe you want to make sure you've got budget for a spare. That's not going to be to everyone's tastes, but you can always practice on cheaper stuff. One of the most popular entry points for modders these days is just buying something broken and seeing if they can fix it. What I would say to those people just starting out though is maybe find a friend or family member who's just got a broken old console they want to give away. See if you can fix it. Maybe even give it back to them if it works. Just treat it like experience.
Thanks so much for talking to me about this. It's been really fun to relive all those memories with you and get your side of it that I never heard.
Thanks for having me on. Let's play again sometime soon.
Welcome back to Zed Games. My name is Hazel, and we're going to be jumping into an interview that I recorded with Ben from the Round Couch on 4ZZZ, all about building custom arcade controllers. I'm here in the studio with my friend Ben. Ben, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
G'day, my name's Ben. I help out around ZZZ as a volunteer technician. I host Round Couch. I play the tuba, and I enjoy playing with electronics and arcade gadgets and gizmos.
So you got tons and tons of experience with electronics. A lot of people listening are not going to be able to relate to that, and any kind of project that involves modifying electronics, probably really intimidating. I know it did for me the first time I did something like that. I brought you on because you got a story I think will really connect with people and show them that it's not that hard.
That's right. When my young fella, my son, was around 12 years old, we decided one day to build an arcade control together. It happened because as like we were doing on a Saturday or Sunday, we were playing games on the computer using the keyboard, sharing the keyboard, going, this is great, but could it be better? And the young fella asked, hey, is it possible we could make one of these arcade controls like they do in the movies or in the real arcade? So I jumped on it and said yes. So we spent a good day or two putting together an arcade control together, using components and pieces that we sourced from local online for under about $100 as a bit of a project that we did together. And then the biggest thing that we needed afterwards was a heap of time to test it and play with it.
The fun part.
The fun part, the best part. Yeah, that's a summary of the project we did.
That sounds like a really cool project. Where would somebody start if they wanted to build their own arcade controller?
That's a great question. Yeah, the best thing that I can recommend is jumping online. There is 101 guides out there available in all different flavors and all different technical specifications. And the other big thing is just to give it a go. Get someone along to help you out, watch a couple of videos, do it alongside them as you go. Do it together, and that will really, really help build the experience for you.
What was the experience like for you when you were working on it with your son?
It was really good. The experience for me was quite exciting in that, for example, there was harder elements in the project and there was slightly easier elements. So you could see the challenges that he had to rise to get past. And there was bits that you can help out. Like, for example, if there was a bulk amount of soldering to do, I'd make sure I got him doing 1 or 2 of them. I'd sneakily do 20 in the background, but we got to do it together. And so we finished together, and that was really exciting. That was something. And he got to be like, I soldered these just like you soldered those. And that was something that was really special. That was sort of the coming together. We made 2 of them. That was a trick. We made 2 of them at once. So we had 1 each to play with as well. And so we could share that experience as well together.
That's so nice. You mentioned soldering. Soldering, I think, is probably one of the scariest things for people who've never done it before and are looking to get into working with any kind of electronics. Are there ways that you can build something like this that don't involve any soldering?
Absolutely, yes. You've got sort of crimp connectors and pre-loaded wires that come attached to development boards, and with those sort of things you can effectively sort of plug and play your project, and that's really important, particularly for the younger environment where with that sort of thing you can sit there and play around with it. And learn with it. That's when I was a younger person. I learnt electronics through my dad having a power supply and a box of components, and just said, hook them up as you please. This is sort of a guided approach to the same thing.
There is so much guidance out there now. People can go and just Google, how do I create an arcade controller at home without soldering? And there will be lots and lots of results out there.
One of the big things that's exciting about doing projects in the modern world is the fact that we've got libraries and software available for you to be able to download to your device and make it work in a multitude of different platforms. So you can make your arcade control for your computer or various consoles and otherwise. And that's one of the really exciting things about modern modding, is that it's a lot more universal and able to be used across platforms.
You've actually brought a couple of the controllers that you've built at home with you into the studio so I can have a look at them. And I see that you have got a microcontroller board mounted in there. So that's taking all of these really basic components and turning them into something that your computer, your console can read and accept as gamepad input.
That's right. In this particular example, the software allows you to run it as a keyboard type 1 for use under arcade emulation, where they typically expect keyboard inputs, or you can use it under the typical sort of console arrangements where you expect the A, B type button inputs. And so it's really, really great in that the universal nature of the modernized way of doing things also allows, to be honest, if mistakes are made, if something happens with the board, you can get those parts, you can replace them. They're not once off that you've spent a lot of time to do. You get to spend the time putting together the actual controller, not necessarily trying to debug all the little bits and pieces.
One thing I want to ask you about is these controllers that you've brought in, they are covered in these huge flat surfaces. To my mind, that is so much space for art and creativity. I think there are a lot of people out there who would love to build something themselves and then decorate it. Have you ever tried decorating some of the projects that you've built like this?
A little bit. I started trying to draw some Pac-Mans and other designs, and worked out that I would team up with someone that was very arty, and I would supply the electronics and they could supply the art, and together we would make the artiest electronics we could.
Teamwork makes the dream work, eh?
Uh-huh.
I mean, you already said it earlier, projects are always more fun when you can get other people involved. You can both learn, you can share your skills, you're not just getting frustrated alone in your room because you put something in the wrong pin and you haven't figured that out and it's going to take you another 5 hours to figure it out.
That's so real, so real.
You're getting frustrated with a friend.
That's it.
Ben, is there anything that you want to share with the people out there who are thinking about getting into some kind of games, console, modifying, electronic project, and they're a little bit scared of it, they don't know where to start?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that now, in the modern age, is definitely the time to give it a go. One of the things that's really evolved in electronics and making a lot of this equipment is previously in the past, you would have to make your fundamental board, and blood, sweat and tears went over that before you even got to the point of your idea or your concept. In the modern age of development, with development boards and development kits, that time and effort's been done by engineers in a lab so that you can focus on your ideas and putting the goodness into what you want to do with the project. Start little and think big. Most big machines, roller coasters, anything in the world is just run on simple switches. So all you need to do is turn on and off a switch, and from there, let your imagination run wild.
Anybody listening to this, get out there, go try something. You know, if this sounds fun to you, it's absolutely worth your time.
Because once you've got the ball rolling, you never know where it'll finish.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Ben, and thank you to Hazel from Tranzmission, Natalia, and Adrian and my brother Alec for making this episode possible. This has been all about modifying video game consoles. There's lots more. This is an extremely deep topic, but I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of a surface level introduction, and maybe that's inspired you to go and check out some project that you can do with the consoles you have at home, or maybe you'll go buy one secondhand. That's it for this week on Zed Games. And if you're listening right now, there is an event happening live at this very moment at Netherworld. It's free to get in. It's called our Indie Dev Night. We've invited independent game developers from all over the Brisbane area to come and showcase the games that they're working on. So you can come and play them. You can chat with a bunch of cool people, maybe even get a word in with the developers. But that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Zed Games.
If you'd like to listen to more, you can find us on the Community Radio Plus app,
or find us on socials at Zed Games AU.
See you next time.